Hello everybody and welcome back to Space Engine. It has been a fun week, and by fun week I mean, I don't know, it's been a week. Yeah, I cleaned out my fish tank filters, which should be less noisy. Well, I mean the fish tank's less noisy, the filter is actually still making noise. Kind of a grinding noise. I need to check the mechanism and fix that later. But for the time being, the shrimp are happy. Yeah, my aquarium right now just has two amano shrimp in it, who, they kind of get along. They fight sometimes, but for the most part, it's like two little shrimp in a massive fish tank, so it's like, there's enough room for both of them. Although I do plan on getting some more, plus maybe some more platies or whatever to kind of fill out the tank. Although I do like just having shrimp, so I might just do a full shrimp tank. Because, yeah. It seems like, actually, most of my experience with aquariums is actually crustacean-based. Like, I had my goldfish for 11 to 12 years, but I've had crayfish and crabs pretty much most of the time. So, actually, at one point, I had 4 fish tanks, and 3 of them had crayfish in them. And it was because I had my main fish tank, which had crayfish in it. I had like an electric blue and a few other brown ones kind of wandering around, and they were lovely. They would fight and hang out in their own territories. I had this one very large female, and she was hilarious because she was a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, but she really liked bullying the men. She would go around and just find the males and just beat them up for no reason. Alright, info. Wait, is it gonna crash on me for clicking info? Aw, you bastard. And we're back. Yeah, I might actually have to report that as a bug because it's consistent. Like, this is a fresh install. Like, I reformatted my computer and reinstalled everything, and it still crashes when I use the info tab. So I should probably not complain, but bring that up and say, hey, I don't know if people have this problem, but for some reason, this is how my game goes. So we're back to not being able to use the info tab, so that's very unfortunate, because that's a big part of what I like doing on this channel, is looking at the info on the various planets. Anyways, what's I talking about? Alright, my crayfish. Yeah, the large female. She would just beat up the other males, or, like, sometimes she would, like, literally just walk over them. It's like one of them would be sitting or just standing somewhere, minding his own business, then she'd walk over, and just, like, as if he wasn't even there, just, like, step over him, and he'd, like, roll over a few times as she, like, climbed over him, and it's like, wow, that was just really rude. But she didn't care. Anyways, so I had the main tank with them, and where's the one with life? I feel left out. Maybe it was, wait a minute. Anyway, so I had the main tank with that, and then every now and then I would notice that she had eggs, like a clutch of eggs under her tail. So apparently she also used the males for those things. And I'd be like, alright, so I had a second tank that a friend gave me because he moved and didn't want to bring the tank with him. So I was like, well, I'm just going to put crayfish in there then. So I did. And then I had a third tank, which was, oh, how did I get it? I think it was, like, again, something that I got from a friend, or it was left over somewhere. And I used that to toss crayfish that had eggs into it so that they could, you know, raise their young without too much trouble. And then I had a third tank that had newts in it. That was my brother. Then he moved to the States for a bit, and I had to take care of it. These rings are very interesting. Like, they're very, like, they kind of, like, diffuse down. I like that. That's a really nice planet. But yeah, so at one point I had a tank, 3 tanks with just all crayfish. Crayfish females actually make fairly good parents. Like, for being just, like, you know, highly aggressive, kind of dumb, Klingon-esque creatures. It's like the female, when she lays eggs, she keeps them under her tail and guards them. And she will beat the crap out of anybody who comes near her when she has eggs. Like, they're like, no, these are mine. And then when they hatch, she takes care of her little brood under her tail as well. So that she'll have, you know, a mass of very tiny baby crayfish. And same thing, if one of the males, one of the female walks by her, she would just beat them up and be like, no. And then when they get a bit older, they kind of hang around her. So she has kind of like this little, like, carpet of baby crayfish that would hang out underneath her and kind of wander around but stay close. And again, if another crayfish came over to her side of the tank with the babies, she will beat the crap out of them. It's actually kind of funny to watch. Alright, subglacial multicellular. Excellent. And then once they get to a certain age, which it's actually fairly fast, like once they get too big to hide under her tail, but they're still fairly small at this point, they become independent and they just go, alright, and they start wandering around the tank, doing their own thing. They'll sometimes hang out with the female, but they generally just become an independent entity at that point. So you have just a bunch of very small, adorable crayfish wandering around the tank. And usually at that point, cause like there's like, hundreds of them when they first hatch. And when they reach that point, their numbers start dropping because, they're tiny little crayfish. So, you get ones that die because of congenital issues or because of sickness or because of injuries, usually from fighting because they fight amongst themselves a lot or because they're preyed on by other crayfish. So it usually whittles down to, in my case, usually about 5 or 6 adult crayfish that come out of each brood. And where do you put them? Well, in more tanks, because you don't want to have too many crayfish in a tank because they're territorial little creatures. So you need to make sure that each crayfish has a set amount of space that is their territory. So I just ended up having a lot of crayfish. And I had that for years, like a long time throughout my teens. So, and now I have shrimp. I have 2 amano shrimp, and they're delightful. And I want to get some more. I want a nice shrimp population, and then I might do platies again because they were kind of fun fish. My only problem, like the last time with the platies, is because they're very inbred. In any given brood, and they breed a lot because they're live breeders. In any given brood, you're supposed to cull out deformed ones or sickly ones because you don't want those genes to stay in the tank population because it'll make consecutive there we go generations deteriorate because they're heavily inbred from this thing, so you want to keep them as genetically healthy as you can. And I hate hurting any kind of small creature. Like I don't even kill bugs. Like I can't do it. I will go out of my way to find a place. Like if it's the summertime, I'll take bugs outside. If it's in the wintertime, I'll find somewhere they can live, usually in a houseplant. So I had a really hard time dealing with the genetic impurities in the tank because I didn't want to hurt any of them. And like I have clove oil, which is used for sedating and euthanizing fish. It's painless and it's easy, but I don't like using it because it hurts me a little bit. So I kind of let it go, and I was kind of hoping that natural selection would just kind of pick off the deformed ones, but ultimately that didn't pan out. And each generation just got worse and worse because the deformed ones were still breeding and out-competing like the healthy ones, and it's like, So eventually the population just collapsed, and the remaining platies weren't breeding anymore because they kind of couldn't, and then they just kind of died of old age, and I haven't had platies for about a year now because of that. So it's like, if I do get platies again, it's like I'm going to have to actually take population control seriously, which I don't like having to do that, but seeing what happens to a tank if you don't, it's like, yeah, it's kind of needed. So if I do platies again, I'm gonna set it up in a way that I'm gonna try to get as much genetic diversity as I can to reduce deformities to begin with. Like I'm gonna get probably 3 or 4 to start out with, maybe like 3 females, 1 male, because you need to have a lot of females to the males, otherwise the males fight, because of course they do. So I'll probably do that, and then I'll wait a few months, and then I'll get a few more. Probably again like 3 females, 1 male. And then I'll wait a few more months, and then I'll get more, and I'll try to get them from different stores too. So the idea is to try to get platies from different populations if you can, even though a lot of breeders supply like large amounts of stores. So you're like they're all going to be related to some degree, but I want to see if I can get as distant a relation between the populations as I can. So I'm gonna do like segments, you know, basically just get a few platies here, and then wait like 5 or 6 months, and then get a few more platies, and just kind of keep, and then over multiple generations, every now and then I'll introduce like a new, you know, couple females or a new male to the tank, and just try to keep the population genetically healthy. And I'm gonna have to remove deformed ones early on before they start breeding to keep the population up. But they just, and I know that that's just normal, like how you're supposed to treat live breeders when you have them in your tank, or even any fish really if you breed them. But it just feels wrong to me. It's like fish eugenics, which it literally is. But the whole point of it is you're trying to undo the damage from the breeders, because people who breed fish for stores, especially like live breeders like platies and guppies and stuff, they don't care about genetic diversity. They just care about bulk. So, and that's actually the truth with any animal breeder, really, is they don't really, they care more about bulk than anything. So you get a lot of genetic diseases and recessive problems coming in. One of the reasons why you never want to buy a purebred dog, like, you honestly don't want a purebred dog. They might look nice, but they're gonna have problems. If you want a dog that'll have minimal health problems and last the longest, get a mix, a hybrid, a mutt of some kind, because they're genetically much healthier than purebreds. Like one of my dogs, her name was Bailey. She was great. She was half Dalmatian, half Shih Tzu, which if you look up those dogs, you realize that's quite the combination. Obviously, the female was the Dalmatian because the Shih Tzu was like, you know, 3 times smaller than her. But anyways, she was a delightful dog. She was very unique. Like, anytime you take her for a walk, people were always like really interested in her because she kind of was like, you know, a medium-sized dog, had kind of the Shih Tzu face and kind of shaggy hair, but she was white with black spots like a Dalmatian. So she was a very odd dog, but she was delightful. She had such a wonderful personality. She loved snow. She was very loyal, and she actually was fairly well trained. She could do tricks and stuff. She was great. But she lived for, oh man, she was like 17, I think, when she died. And it was also avoidable too. And this is a sticking point for me that makes me just mad when I think about it, because she died of cancer. She had a growth in her throat. And it made me upset because, like, she had been sick for a while. Oh, hi, Circe. Yeah? Really? Meow? Are you okay? Yeah? Sorry, my cat came in and wanted to talk to me. What? Whatever. Anyways, she'd been sick for a while, like months, and we'd taken her to the vet, like vets, tons of times, and they could never figure out what was wrong with her, until we finally took her to a vet when she was at her like pretty bad, and the vet was just doing an exam of her neck, and they found the growth in her neck, and it's like, that isn't a hard thing to find. Yes, I know, Circe. Like, it would have been able to have been detected much earlier on if the vets had actually paid more attention, and we probably could have gotten her surgery, and she would have very likely lasted much longer, or at least had a much better quality of life for the later part of her years. But no, the vets completely missed a very obvious growth in her neck, and by the time it was found, it was too late to do anything. And that just makes me so upset, like just angry, because like I have issues with doctors with, you know, treating me with very little in the ways of actually caring about my own problems, and seeing that happen to my dog as well was just like, it's like you go to medical school for X number of years, and do they teach you to just like not do your job? Like, what the hell? So that annoyed the crap out of me. Yeah, but we're playing a space game, aren't we? I'm just talking about pets right now. And my cat came in to yell at me. I don't know what she's on about. I think she's bored or lonely. There's a nebula up here, a diffuse nebula. And I mean, we're only halfway through the video, so I can prattle on whatever I want. Again, these are essentially just podcasts where I just talk about random stuff. Oh man, there was a volcano yesterday, or 2 days ago, I guess. Which obviously I'm sure you all know about. It was the Tonga eruption. That, oh man, the images from it are stunning, but also quite terrifying. And my first thought was, I really hope the people of Tonga are doing okay, because there's communication is very spotty right now because of the ash cloud. So I hope they're doing okay. Preliminary results pointed at being maybe a VEI 5 eruption. VEI being Volcano Explosivity Index. It's how you determine the explosive, like, eruption size of a volcano. And they're thinking it might be a 5, which is the largest one since Tambora, which was a 6 in, what, 93? Or no, 91? And Tambora, when it went up, it actually affected the climate for a few years. Like, it dropped global temperatures by a little bit for a few years because of all the sulfur dioxide, like the sulfur compounds that it dumped into the air. So it'll be interesting to see how this volcano affects our climate, if it does. It might be very minimal. It might be more pronounced. We don't quite know yet. There was a lot of material shot into the air. It'll be determined by how much sulfur compounds were released. So, yeah, volcanoes are kind of weird like that. They tend to cause climactic disruptions, but usually in the cooling aspect. Like, I think, actually, it might have been Tambora as well in the 1800s that went up. I think that might have been a VEI 7, and that one resulted in the year without summer, where it was just cold and rainy throughout most of the northern hemisphere, and I believe southern hemisphere too, for just all year, and it was just crappy. So, we'll have to wait and see. Right, I have a mild headache. It's been Chinooking here, like Chinook winds, for the past, oh, I don't know, week. And I hate them. I absolutely hate them because they cause some people to get migraines and stuff or headaches, but they screw with my vertigo because it's like massive pressure changes and temperature swings. Like, again, it was minus 30 like 2 weeks ago, and then it went from minus 30 to plus 7 right now. And it's like it's been above freezing for the most part for the last few days because of these stupid winds. And it's just like, my head. I hate it. But, oh well. Hey, 8 planets, one with life. It's even a yellow dwarf. It's almost like the sun. If you watch, it'll be like a... No, it isn't. I was like, oh, are we gonna get like an Earth analog? Oh my god, it's a binary. A cold sub-Neptune with 63 moons, one of which has life. We're gonna go there right now. Boop. That's a pretty average-looking moon. Very cratered. Not a lot of surface geology. There's not a lot of active surface geology. I need to probably turn the bloom down, because holy crap, is that bright. Is my cat still in here? No, I guess she left. Okay. And I'm also fully recovered from COVID, which is nice. So, I'm pleased about that. I'm glad I was vaccinated. It probably made it much easier, but oh my god. If they tell you that it's mild, they're lying. It's not mild. It's like, I got a quote-unquote mild infection, and it was terrible. Probably because I also have asthma, but holy crap did it suck. It didn't feel like a cold, it felt like a flu, but like not a super severe flu, but like not a mild flu either. It was pretty bad. It sucked. But it came and went. My sense of smell and taste have come back completely, which is nice. That was only gone for a few days. I think that was just inflammation. It's actually kind of funny about the vaccines, because you have people that are like, oh, it's an experimental vaccine, and doctors don't know how it works or what's in it or the effects that it'll have because it's brand new technology. And it's like, is it really? Is it? And it's like, I guess. Let's see here. mRNA vaccine technology is, oh yeah, it's absolutely brand new because it was first successfully tested in the lab and research began in 1989. So it's 32-year-old technology, and it's been studied actively both in the lab, in animals, and in people for 32 years. So not actually quite brand new. And then, or it's like, oh, coronavirus vaccine specifically is brand new. And it's like, do you know when coronavirus vaccine research began? And people would think maybe 2020, 2021, or 2019 at the earliest. And it's like, nah, man. Coronavirus vaccine research began in 2003, or yeah, 2003, shortly after the first SARS outbreak, and I think kind of around the time of the second SARS outbreak in 2004, 2005. And the coronaviruses have been known about since the 60s. In fact, the first one they found was found in a fellow who had a cold, and it was found in both him and his pet chicken. So that might have been a species jump, either from the chicken to him or from him into the chicken. But coronaviruses are responsible for about 30% of colds, so, they've been around for quite some time, and they're highly adaptive. Yeah, coronaviruses, influenza viruses, and rhinoviruses are, like, highly adaptive, and they tend to evolve really quickly, and it sucks. I hate that. It's like some viruses are very stable. Like, a lot of pox viruses, like smallpox, chickenpox, you get that, and you survive it. You have pretty much guaranteed lifetime immunity, with maybe some exceptions. But for the most part, you have lifetime immunity to to those viruses because they're very stable. But it's like you get the flu, and you can catch the flu again in a few months after you recover. It's like your immunity from the flu is very small. And same thing with rhinovirus, which is a lot of colds, and coronavirus is the same thing. It's like natural immunity from a coronavirus only lasts a few months, and then you can catch it again. It's really, really stupid. I don't like it. But that's just how viruses work, and it's like, damn it. Actually, I would love if they get, like, they've been kind of working on, for the last few years now, a universal flu vaccine, which would be so good, because right now what they do is they basically just track the dominant strains per hemisphere, like during their flu season, and they forecast it, and then they basically just say, all right, we see these strains are dominant, in the southern hemisphere during their flu season, and will probably be the dominant ones up here this season. So they make a cocktail of influenza vaccine that's based on those dominant strains, but there's no guarantee. It's based on forecasting from the other hemisphere. And then when the flu season begins in the northern hemisphere, you get the shot, and then they determine how effective it'll be depending on how correct they were on which strains were dominant. A lot of times they're fairly accurate, and you can get fairly high protection, especially from the dominant strains. Although you can still get the flu because the less dominant strains that weren't covered can still get you if you catch one of them. But sometimes it doesn't go that way. Like, a few years ago, it might have been 2019 actually. I remember there was one time recently they forecasted wrong, and the flu vaccine we got didn't contain the dominant strains that actually happened in the northern hemisphere. It was still, better than nothing because it offered some protection, but it was very ineffectual, and everyone felt very bad about it. It's like, damn it. But if we can make a universal influenza vaccine, don't have to worry about that, because then just a single booster will cover pretty much every influenza strain out there and will last much longer and give you much better protection, and that would be so cool. And there's also ideas of using mRNA vaccine technology to make a rhinovirus vaccine, which would mean that we actually could cure the common cold, which would also be incredibly cool. And there's also prospects for malaria, HIV, and even some cancers. And that's so cool. I love it. I love medical technology. Although I really like regenerative medicine too, like growing organs and stuff. That's an area that I think is incredibly cool and in need of more research, or at least more money, more funding. There's actually quite a bit of research into it. But yeah, actually, ironically, the arguments about the COVID vaccines is the opposite to the argument that conspiracy theorists use about the moon landing. Because like with the vaccines, they say, oh, how did they make vaccines so quickly? And it's because we had all the framework already done. Like the mRNA vaccine technology has been worked on for 32 years. So we have tons of information about how that works. And then coronavirus vaccines were heavily in development because of SARS. So all we had to do was basically take all that groundwork information and then apply it to SARS-CoV-2, and bish bash bosh, we got a vaccine. So it's like we had all the information pretty much already there. So and after like decades of research, so it just took extra steps. Where if going to the moon, people are like, how can we go to the moon in the 60s, but we can't go to the moon now? And it's kind of the opposite, where it's like we don't have the equipment to go to the moon anymore because we haven't been working on that for about 50 years now. So it's kind of a fun inverse between the two conspiracies. It's like going to the moon, you have to build a whole new rocket, a whole new vehicle. You have to crew rate both the rocket and the vehicle and test things and recertify. It's kind of like if you build a car, or like how a car manufacturer builds a car and they stop building the car, and then somebody says, how come you can't build this car right now? It's like, well, we'll have to rework it and then also bring it up to modern car standards. So it takes time. So, yeah, anyways, I'm going to leave it off there for now. That's 25, 24 minutes. I don't know. Probably 24 minutes. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I have to go back to getting some more game development stuff done because I'm working on a project right now which I'm hoping to get done soon. I'm actually paying some people to help me with it too. So, which I didn't really want to, but I'm kind of stuck on a few things and I want to make it actually good. So it's like, yeah, alright, I'll pay some people. Which means that I actually need to make more money because, yeah. So, if you want to help out, you can donate below. I'll have my Ko-fi account. No one ever does, but it's still there. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and space.